Welcome to BETT London, and I expect to see you soon in Brazil in May for BETT Latin America. So my name is Simone, Ricci, and I'm going to cover these 4 aspects in this presentation today. To start with, just would like to point out where I'm based in São Paulo. That is called, the building is called Brazilian British Center, Centro Brasileiro Britânico, where we have the following institutions: the Consulate, the Chamber of Commerce, a small office of BBC, British Council, Visit British, the Community, and Cultura Inglesa headquarters. Cultura Inglesa is an English school in Brazil, one of the few that teach British English, and the building belongs to Cultura Inglesa, so we rent the 2nd floor to be part of this center. Just for you to better understand my country and some South American issues, I decided to put these 2 maps to point you out to the size of the country. So all Europe fits inside Brazil. We are the 5th largest country in the world. Our language is Brazilian Portuguese, not the Portuguese that comes from Portugal. Our capital city is in Brasília, where we have our embassy in the middle of the map. Our population is more than 200 million people, and we are divided in 5 regions, 27 states, and you have to understand that each state has a different culture, even a different accent when you speak to these people there. In terms of the political and economy of the Brazilian market, you can say that with President Dilma, it's a continued economic stability, and for sure we have the most solid banking system in the world. Recent discovery of oil and gas, what we call the pre-salt, is going to make us self-sufficient in terms of oil and gas, with Petrobras being the largest company in the oil and gas sector in South America. As you all know, Brazil is hosting the 2 largest sports events. One is coming up in June, that's the World Cup, and in 2016, after London, we have the Olympics there. So all these major sports events makes the country a really buzz where all the communities and business people are looking to do business in Brazil, not only in the education sector. In terms of the economy, only the state of São Paulo, where 20 million people live, our economy is larger than the Argentina and Chile together. Only in the city of São Paulo, we have 11 million people. A good thing from Governor Dilma is the fact that after President Lula, our middle class grew a lot and doubled in the last decade to 95 million people. And these people are not willing to buy a refrigerator or a car or a house anymore. They are investing in education. More and more is the education that they are really interested in putting their money. When we come to the specific Brazilian education sector and next steps, we can say that it's the largest education market in Latin America and 5th in global terms, with approximately 70 million students. The education sector is ranked as the 10th largest sector in the economy and generates about almost 50 billion pounds per year. In terms of the number of students, Brazil has 51 million Brazilian students in the basic education sector. What's basic education sector? Preschool, elementary, and higher education. Sorry, in higher education, and around 6 million in higher education at universities. 75% of graduate students attend private institutions in Brazil. According to MEC, the Minister for Education, in 2015, 10 million students will enroll universities, with many supports from the federal government that goes from FIES loans, which finance up to 100% of their education. In 2012, the Brazilian government invested 24 billion pounds in education, which represents 6% of our total GDP. With the increase of the purchase power that I mentioned previously in the other slide, more and more Brazilians are investing strongly in education. And an average of 10% of its annual income now goes to education, which is brilliant for a country which in the past did not invest in education at all. So now that you know where I'm based in São Paulo, the Brazilian Ricci Center, now you know about the economy and the political aspects of Brazil. Now that you know about the education sector, you have established your company there. So now, what's next? What should I do? As you know, in Brazil, we have the private and the public sector, as in any other country in terms of the education. And I'll ask to be talking about how to establish local business and government relationships. So what we can say, Brazilians are very concerned with quality. However, price costs are usually the key factor that's going to say if your company is going to be successful in Brazil or not. These days, not only in the education sector, but in most of the sectors, competition is very, very strong. You can say that you have a unique product or a unique service to offer, but in reality, many other countries are visiting our market, are selling to our market, and sometimes price is crucial when you're going to sign an agreement with a Brazilian. Brazilians tend to avoid exclusive agreements and being dependent on a single supplier. So this is another important point when you are there doing business, when you're going to sign the agreement. As Brazil is so huge, Brazilians tend not to sign with only one supplier, a single supplier. Brazilians are extremely careful and having any concerns or any doubts, when they have to close a deal, they want to, first of all, understand who you are, build on a good relationship with the headquarters here in the UK or anywhere else in the world to really firm and establish this agreement, close the deal, and start doing business. UK companies that are already there doing business confirm that it can take several visits before establishing to the market. So when consider Brazil, you have to work out in terms of your business, your budget, if you are prepared to enter a country. If you don't have a good strategy for the Brazilian market, you should be prepared to invest in marketing. You should be prepared to put effort there. It's not like doing business with France or Belgium. That's just on the corner when you can take a train and go to these countries. You really have, and really need and have to be in Brazil, but have in mind that it's a long-term country. How to establish? All the main channels exist in Brazil, from import house, trading companies, franchise, joint venture, licensing. So any kind of business model that you want to follow is there in Brazil. So as I said, a good strategy, a good business model to follow is going to be crucial for your success in my market. Not only in Brazil, but in South America in general. Certainly in Brazil, because of the distance, because of the time frame, it's essential to have someone represent you in the country. It's up to this international supplier and the local agent or distributor to negotiate where you are going to be presented or represented. As I said, due to the size of the country, geographic and product coverage restrictions can also be incorporated. So you must be sure that if your product is more for the south of Brazil, you should be there. Or if it's more for the northeast of Brazil, you should have another agent, another distributor there. So a market research is essential for you to be in my market. Don't go there. Don't just pick up on a plane and think that you're going to do business there, because this is not going to happen at all. Before signing any kind of agreement, you have to be sure that if you had a trademark or a patent, it's going to be registered on the National Industrial Property Agency. That's called INPI. That's a very important issue in order not to have your products copied in the Brazilian market. When in Brazil, you must have what we call a CNPJ, CNPJ. It's going to be the registration of your company in Brazil. It's where you're going to have your tax register. And through this CNPJ is when you can open an account in Brazil and receive your money back here in the UK. So it's the register number there. Then when it comes to the types of entities that we have in Brazil, I'll go briefly on that. It's pretty similar to what you have here in the UK. So you have the limitadas, so no minimal capital is required. The management of a limitada must be performed by a resident in Brazil who can be a foreign, but with a permanent visa and work permit. Sociedade Anônimas, SAs. These ones are open and supervised by the Exchange Commission. No minimal capital is required. The shares issued can be ordinary or preferred. And the management of an SA is with the directors. And the last model, if you're going to follow these entities, is the joint venture partnership that exists between the parties or third parties who deals exclusively with the management partner. The management of the company falls exclusively up the managing party, who must, at the end of the contract term, present the accounts to the other participant partners. So the three models to follow are limitada, sociedade anônima, and joint venture partner. In terms of the government relationships, Brazilian government's procurement apply to purchase, and we need to be through the tenders. Price is going to determine if you're going to win or not the tenders. For you to participate as a foreign country in a tender, you should have a representation in Brazil. As an international company, you cannot just sign and be part and take part of a tender. You must have a representation in the country in order to bid and win or not these tenders. in practice, it's much easier to do business in the private sector in Brazil rather than in the public sector, especially if you are not so well an experienced exporter. Because you can find some barriers in the public sector who, as any other country, would give preference to the national companies. Understand cultural and language issues. I think it's quite obvious to everyone that if you do business in a foreign country, at least you should understand how its culture behaves. And in terms of Brazilians, it's all first names. Brazilians are very welcome people. It's Dutch people. They are kind of people that are going to build a relationship with you and ask about your dog, your family, invite you to their beach houses, and be really very, very friendly. Because of the language issues, it's mandatory to have brochures, catalogs, websites in Brazilian Portuguese. So as you can see, it's very different from the British culture. It's good to have basic Brazilian Portuguese. It's kind of you, if you visit my market, to say a muito obrigado, a thank you in Brazilian Portuguese. It causes a good impression, as when we come here and we speak English with you guys. If a company does not speak English and you are doing business with them, we can hire interpreters on your behalf, and they are charging around just 40 pounds per hour to accompany you in a meeting. We can also hire taxi drivers on your behalf, because usually this kind of people wouldn't have English at all. We have more than 200 million people in Brazil, but only 2% have the 4 skills of listening, writing, when they speak English. So you can imagine the importance of the ELT market for my country. Okay, you can, if you have some Spanish, would work you, but you know, if you go to an interpreter would be better than if you insist in keeping doing, especially when you sign an agreement to keep with the Spanish language. So we always recommend you to have an advisor, a legal advisor with you when signing the contracts, mainly because of the language. Now, when it comes to the financial and legal issues that you're going to find not only in Brazil, but most in South America countries. As I said on the second or third slide, Brazil has a very solid financial system. When you had the crisis here in 2008 with Lehman Brothers financial crisis, we didn't suffer a lot with that, as we did this in Europe, and you still do in the US, and Europe starting to recover from the crisis. This is much to our financial system that's very, very solid, with largest banks presenting in Brazil, and like Itaú, they have a presence in the UK these days. Brazilian interest rates are generally higher than those offered in the EU. Brazilian currency, that's called real, reais in plural, is not freely negotiated, and foreign currency can only be purchased for transactions that are authorized and controlled by the Brazilian Central Bank. Since January 1999, Brazilian currency has been allowed to float against the dollar. And there are no restrictions on the remittance of your profits if you have a CNPJ, CNPJ, an open company in Brazil, and a representation there. In terms of the legal issues, it's also obvious. You have to have a representation there. You should have a lawyer that's going to be with you all the time when sign a contract with a Brazilian player, with a Brazilian partner. The regulations, the tariff regulations, the taxes, they can change from region to region. So like if you have ICMS, that's your VAT here. You pay 70% in São Paulo. You can pay almost 20% in Rio de Janeiro. So you should have the help of attorney, of a lawyer, to help you with the taxes and to help you to understand the complex tax system that we have in my market. Sorry about that. Brazil should be considered a medium to long-term country, and the UK business people should adapt to its reality, to its culture, to its way of doing business. You cannot go there and just impose the way that you are used to do business. Otherwise, it's going to be a failure. It's going to be a waste of your time and your money. When it comes to an end that you cannot have any kind of agreement, arbitration is still the best way to go. And for sure, as anywhere in the world, due diligence is fundamental when closing a deal with a partner. For UKTI, where I work, we have what we call UK Export Finance. The email is there. It's a very good system to help you guys when doing business in Brazil through UKTI to get access to export finance. So it's the official agents that's going to help you with due diligence, that's going to help you to better understand the credit, how it works. So be aware of the service inside UKTI. Most of you guys are not aware of UKTI, but you can get fundings from trade shows, you can get fundings from trade missions, you can get fundings even to translate your brochures to any other language, not only Portuguese. So be aware of the service offered by UKTI. In-country assistance, so landing there in terms of the service that I can provide through UKTI or through the British consulate, that it's what opens doors for me in Brazil, because UKTI doesn't mean too much for Brazilians. What opens doors is our crest that's stamped there and the service that we can provide under the British consulate. We have the OMI service, that's the market information that we can provide. We can, through OMIs, do and organize visits, do events, promote press and PR service, organize launching of products, talk to journalists, put articles on the main magazines and main newspapers, help with the trade fairs and trade missions like this one, like BETT. And why the services are good? Because Brazil is such a distance market from you guys, 11 hours and a half in a plane. You have to be prepared to enter the country. So this would avoid you to waste your time and money there. So it reduces the risk and the costs of a failed business. So as I said, UKTI service can help you to enter South America by this is going to be short to cut the significant opportunities that are there. It's a short route to the market through UKTI service. As my network, we have 2 consulates, one in São Paulo, one in Rio, a very new one in Recife in the northeast due to the opportunities in the northeast of my country, a regional post down in south in Porto Alegre, and our embassy, as I said, in Brasilia, that's in the middle of Brazil. For BETT Latin America, we have the girls here from I2I who can tell you more about this experience, but it's going to be a great show in May that's going to take place in São Paulo at Immigrant Center. You can talk to colleagues here from I2I. I really, really hope to see you at BETT in Brazil. It's going to be a fantastic show where you're going to meet lots of potential buyers, not only for Brazil, but South America, importers, and people that are going to be there. So this was my presentation. I'm really glad to be here at BETT. I'm really glad that BETT is going to Brazil. It's going to be the first country to host BETT Latin America, the first country to receive a BETT show after the UK. And we are really proud about this opportunity because it only proves the importance and the significance about my market that everybody, if you have a good product, if you have a good strategy, is where you should be. Thank you so much for taking your time to listen to me.